back. I've got another project to show you today. I'm going to be making a faux peanut butter and jelly sandwich. This is part of a series that I did with my students at Florida Atlantic University in the fall of 2020 when we were dealing with COVID-19 and we were doing online classes. And it's a fun project to involve your students in. It's self-directed and easy to do and has a great result. So getting started, I'm going to go ahead and show you my slideshow here, and I'm going to play it here for you now. Okay, so the first step is going to be finding a great reference photo for your peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I like to get a selection of angles to show bread texture and also what it would look like cut through the middle. On my research presentation, which I do require my students to do first, I just have them use Microsoft Word or Canva or some other page layout program where they can insert photos and they can insert a materials list. For this project, you will need half-inch upholstery foam. It's foam that's usually used for replacing headliners in cars and that can be picked up at Joann Fabrics or any other major craft store. You're going to need acrylic paint to make the peanut butter and the jelly colors. You're going to need tacky glue, molding paste, and Mod Podge for sealer. And it's you'll notice I also had them do a little. This was my example for them to do at the bottom of the page, the name of the class, their name, the semester and year. Okay, so getting started, I wanted to make a paper pattern. Sorry, there's a glitch in the photo on the left-hand side, but I wanted to make a pattern by tracing a piece of bread so that I'd have something to cut my foam out of. So I just used a paper bag I had on hand from takeout. I just got a piece of sandwich bread that I had in the house. I traced it with pencil and I cut it out. You'll see here on the left-hand side, I've got my completed tracing for my pattern, and then I've opened up my half-inch project foam. I bought this at Hobby Lobby. It came in a roll, and it was just convenient to get the whole roll. I knew I would use it for other things down the road. I think at Joann Fabrics you can purchase foam by the yard. So if students didn't want to do the whole roll, they could just pick up a piece of project foam. After I had the project foam, a portion of it cut off, I used my pattern to kind of determine how big of a piece I needed of the foam, rough cut that piece of foam off the roll, and then traced around the pattern with a pencil onto the foam. And here on the right hand side you can see that I had to use very, very sharp scissors, and you'll notice that that's the one thing you'll really want to encourage your students to do, is to use very, very sharp scissors and to cut very carefully. You're still going to get some little jagged edges, but what you can do is you can just hold the piece of foam bread and very gently go along the edge to kind of straighten out some of those places. You don't want it to look too ragged because later it will show once you go to paint the edge of the bread to look like the crust. So have them take their time on that part. The next thing I did is I wanted to mix up the jelly and the peanut butter. For the jelly, all I used, because I wanted it to be sheer when it dried, is I used some Craft Bond tacky glue. Again, you don't have to use Elmer's. You could use Aleene's, whatever tacky glue you've got. I don't like to use the Elmer's school glue because the tacky glue dries a little bit faster. That's the benefit of it. So if you can get the tacky glue, it's going to just save some time with regard to dry time. And then I just tinted it with a few drops of red acrylic paint. And then I went back in later because it was really, really red. I added just a drop of purple paint to kind of take down the redness of it. For the peanut butter, I used modeling paste. And modeling paste can be picked up in an art supply store or a craft store in the art supply area. It's usually over in the same area that you'd find gesso. And here, Liquitex, I got it at Hobby Lobby. It came in this tube, and it was a little bit less expensive than buying it from the fine art store, which tends to have, you have to buy it in a big jar, and it's about $14. So that here, or I guess it was $9. I saved a little bit of money on the modeling paste. So I put a little bit of that in a container, and then I used a couple of different colors of acrylic paint that I had in the tubes to create the peanut butter color, and I mixed that together thoroughly. I did apply the peanut butter onto the bread after I had already painted the edge of each slice of bread with some brown paint. And I just did that with a sponge brush and a little, I put a little bit of the paint, the brown paint, into a container, and I tapped the sponge brush in there, and then I held the foam bread slice, and I just tapped gently with the foam brush. Those little foam brushes you get where they have the wooden stick handle and the foam is like a black foam. Little craft brushes like that are really, really handy because I didn't need to use, a fine brush to do that. I just needed to use something that was almost like the edge, and those foam brushes worked great for that. So I applied the peanut butter on one side, and then I applied the jelly on the other side. To apply the jelly, I ended up putting it in a baggie and cutting pushing it down to the corner and cutting the corner and then squeezing it onto the bread, because I found that when I was painting it onto the bread, it wasn't going to give me that kind of spilling out over the sides look. I would have to add that later. And by having some of that red paint, the jelly paint, in a squeezy bag, I could squeeze it out later. Once I had the two pieces of bread together, I just put some glue on the left hand, or on the right hand side rather. I put a little bit of the tacky glue on there. Noted though, I did let the bread side with the peanut butter dry a little bit because it's pretty gloppy and it needs a little bit of cure time before you push the two together, I feel like, because otherwise it's just going to go everywhere because it's a little thicker. So give your bread with the peanut butter solution on it a little bit of time to dry, and I'm talking like a couple of hours. Then you can go ahead and do the step that I'm showing on the right with the jelly. Go ahead and glue them together. And then you can see here on the left that I'm squeezing a little bit of that red jelly solution out to let it kind of drip down the sides. It's going to dry clear. Here on the right hand side you can see it's kind of opaque. It looks kind of weird. It almost looks like lipstick or something. It's going to dry glossy and clear once it's done. Okay, so then I mixed up a little bit of varnish. I had two different kinds of varnish. I felt that the jelly needed to be a little bit shinier. So I added a little bit of my jelly colors together, and I put a little bit of the gloss varnish in there, mixed it together. You can see here on the left-hand side that I've got the three different parts in there in the little jar, and here I'm just showing you on the right the two different kinds of varnish that I had available. And then I also decided that I wanted to create more of a bread tone, because at this point I just had the foam of the bread was still white. And so I had to mix here on the left some color to dab onto the top of the bread. And here I was looking at my research pretty carefully to get the tone of the bread accurate on the top. I ended up going back in with an art sponge and a little bit of off-white acrylic paint to create that kind of flowery dusting look to the top of the bread. And I wanted to use this sponge because I didn't want to have an overall texture of that. I just wanted to have a little bit of that on the top showing. And you'll notice that here on the right hand side you can also see where the jelly that I let drip down the side and the little bit of gloss that I added is really starting to look good as it dries. So here is my finished peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's placed on a plate. It has a little glass of milk next to it. I put some peanut butter and jelly, kind of staged it to make it clear that that's what that is. And from, a few feet away in a theatrical setting, that would definitely read as a realistic peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I'm sure you can think of a few plays that might be helped by having some, faux food, lunch food sitting on a table that your actors can interact with, even if they're not obviously needing to eat it. So this is not clearly not edible, but I think it makes a great presentation for a theatrical use. And that is it. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you have fun creating your own faux peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Enjoy.